Hey everyone, well, you know what? It's hard to keep a secret, isn't it? Yep, it certainly is. The mainstream media just really can't get this story right at all. They just can't, okay? The current executive director of the Oakland-Alameda County Coliseum, Scott McKibben, was asked by a publication I will not name since they won't name me, on Monday of this week, if the Raiders were asking for an extension in the Coliseum lease to 2019, and he asked, basically, he said 2019, possibly 2020. Basically, he gave them the same answer that echoed what I reported to you on September 6th, and then again on September 10th, when I said that my source, a Oakland-Alameda County official, and that's as much as I'll say, not Scott McKibben, who I might add is not only my friend, but many of you who regularly follow my work over the years know I personally fought tooth and nail to get hired as executive director of the Coliseum, okay? Not Scott McKibben, but someone I've known much longer. See, what the Las Vegas media doesn't get is I live here in Oakland. And so I see these officials out and about, and we talk. On top of that, I worked for the City of Oakland. My first job out of grad school was as intern to the Oakland Redevelopment Agency, and I served as advisor to 2 of the last 5 mayors of Oakland. And informally, I've advised a number of officials because of my background and experience. So I have a unique position that no one else can replicate in the media. No one. They try, some do, but they fail miserably. But I digress. Back to the facts. The Raiders Las Vegas project has a ton of problems that are leading them to, in secret, ask for an extension. Let's take the biggest one of all, lack of money. Now you would say, what do I mean? Listen. On September 8th of 2016, Robert Goldstein, the chief operating officer of Las Vegas Sands, said before the Southern Nevada Tourism and Infrastructure Committee that was convened by Nevada Governor Brian Sandoval that they, meaning Las Vegas Sands and Mr. Adelson, would cover, and I'm quoting here, all right, all cost overruns. That's what he said, all cost overruns and all operating losses. He said that in black and white. In another episode during the SNTIC meetings, he also said that Las Vegas Sands would pay for such things as, you know, the pedestrian bridge or any other needed transportation improvements. And a consultant whose name I will not mention in Las Vegas told me personally, last year, 2016, as I'm driving in Georgia on the phone with him, and made me stop my car and listen. He said, you don't understand. This is a gift from Sheldon Adelson to Las Vegas, talking about the Raiders Stadium project. And this person was in the right position to know. So when Mark Davis and Mark Bourdain accidentally, if you want to say, pissed away that relationship with the way they were handling it, causing Sheldon Adelson to bolt from the project in late February, basically what they chased away was that, you know, blank check. That ability, that resource in the form of Mr. Adelson to write a check to cover for all these costs. That's gone. So the media, which, you know, really doesn't know any better with these things but won't admit it, mistakenly reported that, oh, you know, first Goldman Sachs and then Bank of America would replace Sheldon Adelson. Think about that. Replace a guy worth $30 billion with a capital B, excuse me, north of $30 billion. I apologize, Mr. Adelson. Replace him. No. But the media went on with that, you know, idea anyway, until it was very quietly, just by his arrival and statement, put to rest by Bank of America sports banker Elliot McCabe, when he came to the Las Vegas Stadium Authority a couple of months ago, about or thereabouts, and said that they were only going to offer, they being Bank of America, the $850 million loan, and no, they would not cover any cost overruns. He said that. And I have said to you before, and I say to you again, it's the same type of loan that was let to the Atlanta Falcons to build their new stadium. The difference is that the Falcons were able to gather together over $1 billion in sponsorships from such organizations as Mercedes-Benz, Porsche. You get the idea. Atlanta has a lot of giant companies who've chosen to make their headquarters there. That's the Falcons' advantage. Again, I digress. But that's not the only problem. But because of that lack of money, because of the situation that was created when Sheldon Adelson walked away, and because of the way this Southern Nevada Tourism and Infrastructure Committee wrote what became the Southern Nevada Tourism and Investment Act, the law, what others refer to colloquially as, the Nevada Bill or Senate Bill 1, the Raiders are stuck paying for those costs. Oh, and then you have to add in Clark County's own regulations with respect to parking, which have heaped an additional layer of giant costs to the tune of $650 million. Now you would say, how do I arrive at $650 million? Well, the Nevada Department of Transportation pegged all stadium-related infrastructure improvements, off-site transportation infrastructure improvements, or colloquially, improving and adding to highways and so on, at $900 million. The SNTIA states that the Raiders, basically the developer, in which case are the Raiders, would have to pay an adequate amount of that. So, not knowing exactly what that would be, but knowing that, for example, one new interchange cost just north of $200 million, and the report called for 3 of them, okay? And then the recent revelation that by the Martell companies, which analyzed the Kimmy Hill study, which in turn was in part based on the study that was released by NDOT, the Nevada Department of Transportation, all right? Those so-called for improvements were not done with respect to a real understanding of how much traffic the stadium would produce on top of what's already there. So such issues as, for example, hey, how many lines of additional road do we need to handle, or input ways do we need to handle lines for taxis and Lyft and Uber vehicles? Not known. I'm serious. It's not known. And then on top of that, what would be the total transportation impact of the stadium when the stadium emptied out, okay, at the same time that people are trying to get to McCarran Airport, which is basically just next door? Not known. Not kidding you. Not known. That's the new revelation that wasn't talked about at the last Las Vegas Stadium Authority meeting, okay? And then there are other problems, like, for example, the problem with the channel, and, well, you can go on and on and on. But the cost that we know about, peg them at $650 million, then you add the relocation fee, you're looking at, if you just take that amount alone, the $650 million, and then the relocation fee, you're looking at a total project cost of $2,550 million. That's right, $2,550 million. That's way north of the $1.9 billion, which I might add is an estimate, because we don't know what the, quote, guaranteed maximum price, unquote, is going to be, and we won't know that until next year. For the sake of the Raiders, you want that in February. But if you get it sometime in March, or more than likely April, you got a big problem. I think it's going to be more than likely than it happens in April. And the reason, and that's a bad deal, right? Why? It's a bad deal because The drop dead date for the Raiders to really get all of these documents done is May 16th. It's not April 17th as one Las Vegas media organization reported. That was wrong. And here's why it's wrong. It's wrong because it's April 17th if you measure the clock as ticking on October 16th, when the Nevada legislature of 2016, when the Nevada legislature approved the SNTIA. If you do it at that point, you're wrong, because the ordinance that comes along with it specifically states, and it was an ordinance that was to be picked up by the Clark County Board of Commissioners, specifically states that it's only after the date of the approval of the ordinance that the clock that I'm talking about, that basically has its end date several months later, which would be May 16th and not April 17th, takes place. What was that date? It was November 17th of 2016 that Clark County, the board, approved the ordinance that said, okay, and you can now go and establish this hotel tax, which would then collect the money, which would then be used for the $750 million bond issue, of which the proceeds, the $750 million, would go to the construction of the NFL stadium, or the desired NFL stadium. All right. That is why I say the date is May 16th and not April 17th, not April. That date is wrong. Again, I digress. The point is that the Raiders were shooting for a 2020 deadline because, from a public relations standpoint, there are other reasons. They wanted the Raiders to have a facility open by the NFL's 100th year. The backstory, however, is that the Raiders didn't want to get in a situation where their stadium plans will be impacted by a looming strike. That's the other issue, which many believe will happen in 2021. Okay? That's the other issue. But you take this whole ball of wax together and it spells the Raiders seeking a longer lease at the Coliseum than they originally intended. Now, some of you say, well, they could play at Sam Boyd Stadium, but there is the thorny issue of paying UNLV for the millions and millions of dollars of upgrades. And then not only that, there were other politics that I'm not privy to, which caused that not to happen. Otherwise, the Raiders could very well have wound up in a situation where they're playing in Las Vegas already, just as the Chargers are playing at StubHub Stadium right now in Carson, California. So that's where it lay out right now, folks. That's the truth. The information that I got wasn't speculation, as Rich Villota reported in Las Vegas Review-Journal. It wasn't speculation. And I said his name specifically because he said it was East Bay blogger speculation. I was not speculating at all. The information I got was hard, factual, and from a source that is in a position to know far more than anyone else. Scott McKibben is not the only source. Okay? But the simple fact that Scott would first basically confirm what I said and then come back and tell someone else, well, I didn't really talk to the Raiders, means that the Raiders were concerned about this information getting out, said to Scott, hey, look, we need help in battening down or simmering the conversation around this. And that's what Scott was trying to do. Stay tuned and please subscribe to Zenny62 on YouTube.